Hi, everyone. This is a market recap for Friday, August 7th, 2026. Um, Decent day across most tech sectors in the market, and a lot of sectors for that matter. Luckily, for now, we've held the lows of the follow through day. We didn't just crack down back over the 50-day on the Qs pretty decisively. Um, SPY, I still think could stand to put in a few more days of digestion. Maybe SPY forms a high type flag. Who knows? But um, I think you know, the problem with the Qs I'm noticing, and the SPY for that matter, are the kind of lower volume these last day or two. I would have liked to see a pretty decisive recovery yesterday, and as we make a new high today, even this, potentially a stronger push. Listen, I'm certainly not bearish or anything, um, but it's just again, I've been having a little bit of difficulty reading this market. Um, and I'm just not a huge. I don't love the low volume that we're seeing on a day like today. But with that being said, tons of stocks look good, tons of sectors look good, and they are really shaping up. Um, and I think that to me is the ultimate bullish indicator. Sure, there are still a lack of really high quality setups. However, stocks are and a lot of stocks for that matter are continuing to just absorb a lot of buying pressure, and they're just going up. And some of them are beginning to build their right sides, and that to me is what gives me a little more confidence than something than how I felt initially, kind of on the beginning of this follow through day when there was just like AMD, HPE, and Dell, and now we're really starting to see strong earnings reactions and stocks holding their levels, and money flowing into new sectors. Um, the market could stand to go sideways for a bit to let things catch up. It was kind of a sudden snapback that we got. Things just need to shape up a bit. Um, but anyway, so where should I start? We've seen some strong earnings in the after hours last night. Some of them had good reactions, some of them didn't. If we look at a DOCS, this thing was up like almost 100% at its highs and just completely sold into. Team, a decent gap up 35%. Corsair, awesome to see, right? I had this chart on my watch pretty much since the third. And frankly, I was hoping that we'd consolidate under this, $13 level, but no, I mean, it just cruised right through it. Twilio looks really good. Frog a little bit weak, but still a strong gap up nonetheless. Um, this did gap up in the after hours, although it kind of sold off, all day and toward the close. And then Zebra, this gapped up a few days ago. Nice continuation there. And a lot of charts are kind of setting up exactly like this, like 1 or 2 days of sideways before kind of breaking out. Um, so software, I guess we'll start with software. Pretty solid day in most software names. ZDog still hasn't made a new low since earnings, which to me is totally fine. This could have been a good short opportunity off the 50 potentially, although personally I wouldn't be shorting anything in the software space, even if stock that gaps down after earnings. I still think this looks, although we lost this low and we had a pretty poor reaction, um, I've seen stocks in strong groups just get bought up and get right back into their ranges. And frankly, D-Dog could do the same. Oops, that's not a software stock. Um, Snow, good continuation. I think Pan W looks really good. I think OKTA looks really good. To me, these actually have reasonable flags at this point. Like an Okta, for example, I think this looks pretty good over 150 tomorrow. Um, like I probably would trade Okta over 150 tomorrow. I think Pan W looks really good. Not quite as tight. And again, I still think these could use a few more days if I'm being totally honest, even in Okta. But this is a reasonable sideways at this point. Right? Nice little cup and handle. Um, so software looks pretty good. Palantir had some awesome continuation today. Really good to see. Microsoft, some good continuation over 500, although we did close under 500 today, right? 499.99. And I do think that's interesting. I could very well see us uh, consolidating under 500. And if we do, I'd be happy. I'd love to get involved in a stock like Microsoft. Um, but I think it looks pretty good. Metal saw a good day today. Steel kind of pulling back, right? If we look at a CLF, if we look at well, nothing, when I say pulling back, I mean structurally intact pullback. So if we look at a CLF, an MT, um, an STLD, an NUE, oops, right? These look good. These look really good still. Gold and copper, if we start with copper, like stock like FCX or ERO or SCCO, all look really, really good. I'd consider a trade on SCCO kind of over this level here. The one concern with copper is if we look at copper futures, right, it is kind of a bit of a false breakout. But I'm not bearish on copper when you have a stock like ERO doing what it's doing. Um, and not to mention the other metals like gold and silver also acting well, right? If we look at gold futures, right, we still have room into the 200 here, and then potentially we'll go sideways and have some continuation. So gold happens to look really good. Silver not quite as strong. Um, Banks saw a bit of a red day today, although I do think they still look good. Yesterday, I was a little concerned because it was a pretty nasty red day in a lot of the banks, even if the volume was a little bit lighter. But I think several banks provided good pullback entries today. I think PNC looks really good off this level. Um, I think TFC looks decent. Some of the smaller regionals. Um, I think ONB looks okay. I think Schwab looks decent. Um, I think it's just a pullback day in the banks, and we'll see what happens. I didn't trade any of the banks today. Um, I'm kind of banked out after FFBC being in that thing for so dang long, and also, I mean, I would like to be in a trade like PNC, and frankly, I think this is a reasonable entry. However, the problem with a stock like PNC, and most banks for that matter, is they are so slow. It's like to make a meaningful amount of money on banks, you just have to put so much money into one trade, and it's just the opportunity cost is not really optimal when other things are moving. If we were still in a market correction and banks were acting well, then I'd consider a trade on a stock like PNC. But right now we're seeing money flow into things, so I'm just avoiding a stock like PNC. Um, Oil, crude not looking the best. Some of the refineries still pulling back, right? If you look at a Dino or MPC or a PARR or a VLO, right? They're kind of not looking so hot anymore. And I could have predicted this pullback, deeper pullback on VLO after we look at a PBF and uh, a Dino. So we'll see. So as a whole, oil not too impressed with oil's price action of late. Tankers still have a base, but I've kind of given up on the tanker breakout. I think if FRO was going to go, it should have gone on the third, and it isn't. So kind of just given up on that. Just out of sight, out of mind. Some of the oil names look okay. Some of them look like crap. Like this, looks reasonable, but just kind of not really too. I'm just kind of moving away from oil at this point. Semis, nothing too crazy today. Nvidia still looks really good. AVGO still looks really good. AEHR still looks really good. But aside from those three names, the rest of the semis just kind of look like crap. Oh, AMD too. I think AMD still stands, deserves some credit. Um, right, if I look at an AMD, kind of a strange chart, a very volatile consolidation. However, if we let the moving averages, if we go sideways a little longer and kind of let the moving averages converge, um, I definitely think AMD could be a good future trade. Um, it looks good. I think AMD looks fine. Mm, um, Anything like there was not really a particular sector that like stuck out to me today. Light tried breaking out today in the optics space. The other optics names don't look so hot, in my opinion. Um, I actually took three new positions today, kind of an aggressive way to get involved from purely a position standpoint. However, I took like extraordinarily small size on every single thing that I bought into. So I guess I'll start with Dell. Um, it kind of sucks. Dell has just proven to not give me the entry that I want. I mean, it did today, right? This is the level I called out, 2 days ago, that I wanted to see a pullback into, right? In this kind of 430 to 20 area. And we got it, right? Pretty much tapped the 50-day, and then just got bought up all day. Um, Again, I kind of mentioned it. I don't like buying pullbacks on stocks intraday because I'm not good at it. It's not something that I have refined properly to make buying intraday pullback something that gives me a good edge. I have much more edge waiting for the close on most pullback trades, which is what I did today for Dell. Now the thing about Dell is I this is not typically a pullback I would buy as far as the range. I mean, it's huge, and I'm chasing it all the way up here at $452 a share. Um, and that's like pretty suboptimal in my opinion. However, I am I have very high conviction with Dell. I truly do think that we will see continuation and a breakout, you know, up to who knows how much, but I do think that we will break out on Dell. Um, this was the perfect entry if you were watching it down here. Um, but I took really just a starter in anticipation that we were going to gap up tomorrow and go. Uh, and if we do gap up, I will add and bump my stop up to break even. But if we don't, I have a stop all the way down here, a very, very wide stop, meaning I can hold through some chop. I just don't, when I trade bases, if I can manage to get involved before the breakout, I will always try to get involved before the breakout. Because I like to accumulate in these areas once structure is kind of established and then add over the breakout level. It just gives me a better cost basis and helps me manage risk a little bit better. Um, so again, extremely small position on this. But I am looking to add if we get that breakout. Again, if it stops me out tomorrow, I'm not going to be upset about it. But I really don't anticipate that we'll revisit these lows. So I did take a stab on Dell. I took a stab on Lockheed Martin. This thing like barely avoided my alert, which is a little annoying, which I had on the 10-day. It's kind of held these, the lows of these last few days. Again, I bought at the close, stop at low of day, or stop at the low of this consolidation, which would be 588.39. And again, small position looking to add over this level here. I took a stab on RCL actually. Right off the 10-day here, could get a really, really, really low risk entry off this. And I kind of like this pivot here. I don't like what crude is doing, which kind of makes me a little more bullish on a stock like RCL. And some of the other cruise liners are kind of shaping up decently. And I like the space that we're in. I'm perfectly fine doing a little bit of bottom fishing on this. If this thing stops me out tomorrow, it's done. It's out of my, I'm not going to trade it again unless we get a solid breakout on it. But I'm not going to lose like any money across these three stocks. I wouldn't even lose 1% if all three of them stop me out tomorrow. So these are all starter. These are all my version of testing the waters. So yeah, like RCL, I like this base. Wouldn't mind a breakout. This thing needs a little more sideways in my opinion. But if this can be a higher low, then that would be awesome. So those are my three new positions today. Again, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I am looking to add to Lockheed Martin and Dell. Um, Brinker International, right? Just grinding higher, nothing too crazy. MT, steel names, already kind of talked about these. Um, nice little pullback. At least I think I talked about them. But CLF, STLD, NUE, just in case I didn't, they all are shaping up nicely, right? Holding kind of their pivots, holding their EMAs, a nice trend higher. So hopefully we get some continuation tomorrow. Um, again, not one sector really stuck out to me, aside from a couple of the software names, like OKTA and PanW. Uh, Crowd looks okay. HPQ had a nice breakout today. Um, Again, like hard to get positioned, I tell you. I would love to be in a stock like HPQ, but it didn't dip low enough, right? I would have liked to see it a pull back into like the $27 range, but I think with Corsair just ripping higher on earnings, this thing just kind of had to follow. So HPQ is gone. Awesome to see it breaking out at least though. Um, a couple of the flag watch stocks on my flag watch list that I think need more time. Right, NTAP looks really good. AUB kind of gapped down today. This thing, again, I still think if we could eventually get over this level, looks pretty good. Although this is a slow mover. I'm not sure this is something I'd actually trade. Just absorbs so much buying power, but um, it does look good. FCell is still something I'm tracking, not something I'm trading. Kind of looks like today might have been the final day. A bit of a high volume on this kind of higher low. But this chart is a little loose for me. Microsoft still would like to see a consolidation under 500. Um, Amazon would still like to see a consolidation here, however that looks. Corsair, this thing looks like it's off to the races. Probably won't see much of a sideways on that. Um, Garmin, uh, this thing might just also be off to the races. Not sure if we'll get much of a flag on this. And then Palantir, awesome day today. Not sure if we'll get much of a flag on this either. Um, but I mean, that's about all I have. Again, nothing really stuck out to me as far as like an individual sector. I do think the market allowed for some cleaner, tighter entries today, which is good. Again, if you were watching the intraday pullbacks, like on a stock like Dell, I think the people that are good at trading these type of things. I mean, you get an awesome entry kind of over this area here, maybe. I don't have VWAP on this chart, but if you get a reclaim of VWAP, then this could have been a nice pullback trade. You know, Regretfully, I did not do that, and I'm in very high, much higher than I'd like to be. Um, but I need to get involved in this thing, even if it's a really, really tiny position. So that's what I'm doing. Um, and yeah, that's about it. We'll see what happens in the coming days. Don't really know what to expect. I'll talk about healthcare real quick. I think LLY looks kind of good. Um, I think this is a reasonable consolidation. I don't know if I draw it exactly like that. But I like this pullback into these EMAs here. I think today was a reasonable entry if you were trading Lilly. The XLV still kind of in this consolidation here. I definitely think we could stand to go higher. But yeah, that's about all I got. Thank you for watching, and yeah.